Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, always fun to get together and really unpack some interesting stuff.
Right. And today we're going to be tackling something
Oh, yeah, this is a big one.
kind of a tough one, infidelity.
It's one of those topics that people often just avoid talking about.
Yeah, it
Mm.
can be kind of taboo, but that's why we're here to really dig in.
Exactly.
We'll be looking at an episode from the Relationship Real Talk podcast.
Love that podcast.
Me too.
It's so real, so raw.
They don't hold back.
And the episode we're diving into is titled, Why Do People Cheat? Unpacking Infidelity.
Specifically, the first episode in their series, The Roots of Cheating in Relationships.
It's a great starting point for this deep dive because they really lay the groundwork.
Yeah, they bring in so many different perspectives, We hear from listeners who have experienced infidelity firsthand.
Right.
We get insights from a relationship therapist.
Oh, that's always helpful to have that expert perspective.
And of course, the podcast hosts themselves share their own thoughts and analyses. So we're getting a really well-rounded view of this complex topic.
Exactly. And right off the bat, they raise this question of well, how do we even define cheating?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Is it just about physical intimacy? Or can emotional connections also be considered a form of cheating?
It really makes you think about those boundaries within a relationship, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Where do we draw the line? What constitutes a betrayal of trust?
And the podcast hosts suggest that ultimately cheating, regardless of the specifics, boils down to a breach of trust between partners.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
It's that feeling of betrayal. That sense of having your trust violated.
That's deep.
Deeper than any specific action.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the common reasons that the podcast explores for why people cheat is dissatisfaction within the relationship itself.
Right, like when those core needs aren't being met.
Yeah, things like unmet emotional needs, lack of intimacy.
It's like feeling like a piece of you is missing.
Exactly. And the podcast hosts even suggest that when partners don't feel valued or appreciated, they might start seeking that validation elsewhere.
It's like a cry for attention, almost a subconscious one.
Right. And it makes you wonder, have you ever been in a situation or seen a situation where someone felt so overlooked that they...
Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen that happen.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking,
It is. It really is.
But it's a reality.
Absolutely.
And it's something we need to talk about.
Right.
Now, another factor that the podcast points to is external pressures.
Oh, yeah. Life can throw a lot at you.
Yeah, think about things like stress from work, financial worries, family drama.
It can all take a toll on a relationship.
Totally. And sometimes it feels like infidelity becomes this way to cope,
Like an escape.
Exactly. A temporary escape from all the pressure.
But the question is, does that stress really justify cheating?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's almost like saying, does a headache justify taking painkillers without addressing the underlying cause?
And the Relationship Real Talk hosts were pretty clear that often infidelity has more to do with what's going on inside a person.
Yeah, their vulnerabilities, their coping mechanisms.
Rather than just being attracted to someone else.
It's about understanding those deeper motivations.
And speaking of attraction, the podcast also dives into the whole idea of the thrill of the chase.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one.
It's like that novelty of a new connection can be so intoxicating.
Right, it's exciting, it's fresh.
It makes some people disregard the consequences completely.
It's like they get tunnel vision.
They do.
You only see that thrill.
But the question that really stuck with me was, what makes this thrill so compelling that it outweighs the risks to a committed relationship?
What do you think? What's your take on that?
I mean, it's like a temporary escape from routine and responsibility,
Yeah.
But is that escape ever truly worth the potential fallout?
Right, because there's always a cost.
Always. And speaking of fallout, the Relationship Real Talk podcast really doesn't shy away from the human cost of infidelity.
They get raw.
They share these incredibly powerful stories from both sides.
From people who have cheated and those who have been cheated on.
And hearing those stories, it just brings home the emotional reality of infidelity.
It's a reminder that we're talking about real people with real feelings.
Absolutely not just some abstract concept.
It makes you really think about the ripple effects.
Totally. How infidelity doesn't just impact the individuals involved, but everyone connected to them.
That's like a stone thrown into a pond.
Those ripples, they just keep spreading.
And this is where the podcast takes us even deeper.
Yeah.
They start to explore how infidelity might actually be a symptom of deeper issues within the relationship itself.
Okay, so we're going beyond the surface level now.
We're getting to the heart of the matter. Like sometimes things are just bubbling under the surface,
Yeah. Yeah, and instead of addressing them head on, they just kind of fester.
And then boom.
Infidelity happens.
It's like that saying,
Promise it.
sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but sometimes the wheel falls off entirely.
Wow, that's a good one.
It really fits here, doesn't it?
Totally.
The Relationship Real Talk hosts, they talked about how unresolved conflicts or poor communication
Yeah.
can be like these cracks in the foundation of a relationship.
And if you don't fix those cracks,
Right.
the whole thing can crumble.
It's as if cheating becomes this way to break free from the dysfunction.
Like a desperate attempt at escape.
Exactly. Have you ever seen that happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, think back to your own experiences, too. Have you ever seen a situation where infidelity came as a total shock? But looking back, there were signs all along.
Oh, yeah, those red flags.
Right. And it makes you wonder, do we sometimes just choose to ignore those warning signs?
I think we do sometimes.
Yeah, like hoping things will magically work themselves out.
It's human nature to avoid conflict.
It is. It's so much easier to just sweep things under the rug.
But as the podcast emphasizes,
Yeah.
that rarely ends well.
Nope. Problems don't just disappear.
They usually just get bigger.
And that's where the expertise of a relationship therapist can be so valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
The Relationship Real Talk episode actually features insights from a therapist.
Oh, cool.
And I thought their perspective was really insightful.
What do they say?
So they suggested that rebuilding trust after infidelity, it hinges on facing those underlying issues head on.
Like really digging deep.
Exactly. It's not enough to just apologize or promise it won't happen again.
You got to get to the root of the problem.
Exactly. You have to address those root causes that led to the infidelity in the first place.
It's about going beyond the surface level, asking those tough questions.
Like, what needs weren't being met in the relationship?
Yeah, where did communication break down?
Were there patterns of behavior that contributed to that disconnect?
It makes you think, what specific strategies could couples use to really tackle those underlying issues?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think it probably varies from couple to couple.
Yeah, every situation is different.
But the podcast hosts do offer some general guidance for moving forward after infidelity.
Okay, like what?
They emphasize the importance of open and honest communication,
Of course.
setting clear boundaries, and even seeking professional help through couples therapy.
Yeah, therapy can be so helpful in these situations.
Totally.
But it makes you wonder, do you think rebuilding trust is always possible after cheating?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Or are some situations just too damaged to repair?
I mean, if you really think about it, could you ever truly move on from such a profound betrayal? I think it depends on so many factors, you know?
Yeah, like what?
The nature of the infidelity,
Right.
the willingness of both partners to actually put in the work, and honestly, the underlying strength of the relationship before the betrayal even happened.
It's not a simple yes or no answer.
Definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's a key takeaway from this deep dive.
What is?
Understanding the complexities of why people cheat.
Oh, yeah, it's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's so nuanced.
There are so many factors at play.
And understanding those complexities, it's the first step towards prevention, healing, and even
Even what?
growth.
Growth. You mean like a couple coming out stronger on the other side of infidelity?
It might sound counterintuitive, but yeah.
I mean, that's kind of hard to wrap my head around.
It is. But sometimes facing such a profound challenge can force individuals and couples to really confront their deepest needs and desires.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it that way.
It can be a catalyst for real transformative change.
So instead of seeing infidelity as this automatic death knell of a relationship,
Right.
maybe it could be a wake-up call.
Yeah. A chance to rebuild something even stronger, more authentic.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is. But let's not sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
The path to healing after infidelity, it's rarely easy.
Definitely not.
It requires immense courage, vulnerability, and commitment from both partners.
Absolutely.
It's not about condoning cheating, but rather recognizing that even in the darkest of times, there's potential for growth and healing. So much to think about here.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have the different forms of infidelity, the common reasons people stray, the potential for healing and growth,
It's been quite a journey through the world of relationships.
and all the challenges they face.
And remember, we've explored all of this through the lens of the Relationship Real Talk podcast.
Which gave so many different perspectives.
From listeners sharing their personal stories
To the host's analysis.
as the expert guidance of a relationship therapist.
It's been a deep dive in the truest sense of the word.
You know, before we wrap things up, I think it'd be good to leave our listeners with something to really think about.
Yeah, I like that. What do you have in mind?
Well, we've been talking about all these complexities of infidelity, right?
Yeah.
The reasons that prove the potential for healing.
Right.
But what if we flip the script a bit?
Flip the script.
Yeah, like instead of always viewing infidelity as this purely negative, destructive force, what if we considered it a potential catalyst for growth,
Whoa, okay, hold on. So you're saying infidelity could actually lead to growth?
both individually and within a relationship? Yeah, it might sound crazy.
But it kind of does.
Think about it, though. Sometimes the biggest challenges in life,
Yeah.
they force us to reevaluate everything.
Truly look in the mirror.
Exactly. And maybe infidelity for some couples can be that wake-up call.
That push to confront those deep-seated issues that they've been avoiding.
Right. It's not about condoning cheating at all.
Of course not.
But rather recognizing that even in the most painful situations,
There can be a glimmer of hope.
exactly, a chance for transformation, a chance to build something even stronger.
So maybe instead of viewing infidelity as the end of a relationship, it could be a new beginning.
A chance to start over with more honesty, more awareness, more depth.
Wow, that's a really powerful perspective.
It is, and it's definitely not an easy path.
Oh, no, for sure.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that possibility.
I agree. And you know what this whole conversation has really highlighted for me?
What's that?
The importance of open communication in any relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Communication is key.
Like if you're feeling unhappy, if your needs aren't being met.
You got to speak up.
Exactly. Don't let things fester until they reach a breaking point.
Right.
Yeah.
Address those issues head on, work together to find solutions.
And if you're struggling to do that on your own,
Don't be afraid to seek professional help.
there is no shame in reaching out to a therapist.
Not at all. They can provide guidance and support.
And sometimes that outside perspective can make all the difference.
It really can. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
We have. It's been quite a journey exploring the intricacies of infidelity.
From the reasons behind it to the potential for healing and growth.
So to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit challenging.
Because sometimes the toughest topics are the ones we need to talk about the most.
Absolutely. And remember, the journey of understanding ourselves and our relationships.
It's ongoing.
Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for those healthier, more fulfilling connections.
Could have said it better myself. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure. Until next time, everyone.
Happy diving!